Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be immersing ourselves in a source material that is, um, let's just say it's as notorious as it is influential, the 48 Laws of Power.
It's really a manual, isn't it, for gaining, observing, and, well, maintaining control. All of it distilled from, thousands of years of history.
Triumphs and failures. And our mission today is to kind of cut through this pretty extensive list and pull out the most potent and sometimes, frankly, shocking insights for you.
Exactly, and it's important to frame this right from the start. These laws, they aren't moral prescriptions, not at all. They're observations on human nature when power is the only thing that matters. We're going to group them by theme to make it all a bit more digestible.
A fascinating, if sometimes ruthless blueprint. So let's jump right in with what the source material claims is the absolute most crucial asset in the whole game.
How you appear to others.
Exactly,
Yeah.
your image. According to the book, reputation isn't just a nice to have. It is, and this is the famous quote, the cornerstone of power.
That's Law 5. So much depends on reputation and guard it with your life. But what's really fascinating is how the laws immediately pivot from building your own reputation to managing your relationship with authority.
Which brings us straight to Law 1. Never outshine the master.
Right.
And this law, it really hits hard for anyone, climbing a corporate ladder or any creative field, really. We're all taught to demonstrate our value, show what we can do.
But the source warns that if you display your talents too enthusiastically, you just inspire fear, insecurity, in those above you, in the masters.
So what's the move then?
The real power move, according to this law, is to make your master appear more brilliant than they are.
Yeah.
It's calculated subordination. You have to always make the person in charge feel comfortably superior.
That's a very subtle game of career preservation.
Hmm.
But it does raise a challenge.
Yeah.
How do you establish your own identity if you're constantly making someone else shine?
Well, that's where Law 41 comes in. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes.
Okay, so how does that connect?
It's about originality. If you succeed someone famous, someone beloved, you are automatically compared to them. The source calls it the tyranny of the past.
And why is that so dangerous?
Because what comes first is almost always seen as more authentic, more original. To really shine, you'd have to accomplish like double their success just to seem worthy.
So you step in their shadow.
Completely. The advice is to change the game entirely. Don't continue their legend. Create a new definition of success. That's how you escape.
Okay, so we have to defer to the master but still stand out. That feels like a paradox.
It is. And that brings us right to the paradox of attention. We're looking at Law 6 and Law 46 here.
Right. Law 6 dictates you must court attention at all cost. It says what is unseen counts for nothing. You have to be conspicuous, larger than life.
Stand out from the bland and timid masses, as the book puts it. It's about creating a personal brand that commands focus. But, and this is the big but,
Here it comes.
if you succeed, if you become this flawless, untouchable magnet of attention, you immediately run into the problem described in Law 46. Never appear too perfect.
And this is where the tension gets really interesting, because if
Yeah.
you seem utterly flawless, you don't inspire admiration. You generate envy.
Deep envy. And the source suggests that envy creates silent enemies, people who will work to undermine you when you least expect it.
So what's the play?
The smart move is to occasionally display an honest defect or, admit to a harmless vice, something that doesn't really impact your core competence.
It makes you seem more human?
More human, more approachable. It just lowers people's guards and deflects that destructive envy. So yeah, power demands you stand out, but survival absolutely requires strategic imperfection.
It's a two-step process then.
Yeah.
Draw them in with the spectacle, then reassure them with a little vulnerability.
Precisely, it's a dance.
Okay, so if that's about passive image management, let's shift to the next phase. Active psychological manipulation. How do you weaponize information, or the lack of it?
Now we're getting into the real arsenal of control. And it starts with two key laws. Law 3, conceal your intentions. And Law 4, always say less than necessary.
Concealment seems straightforward. If people don't know what you're really up to, they can't prepare a defense against it, you guide them down the wrong path.
And Law 4 reinforces that. The more you talk, the more common you appear, the less in control. Powerful people impress and intimidate by saying very little.
It's that whole Sphinx-like quality. If I say less, I sound profound just because I'm leaving room for everyone else to interpret what I mean.
Exactly. But controlling the conversation also requires some deep intelligence on your opponent.
And this is where we get to the idea of leverage.
Yes. Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. The idea is that every single person has a weakness, an insecurity, an uncontrollable emotion, a secret pleasure, something.
And once you find that weakness,
It becomes a thumbscrew you can turn to your advantage. It's about recognizing where someone's self-interest really lies and then using that to make them predictable.
which allows you to then employ something like Law 31. Control the options. Get them to play with the cards you deal.
Yes, this is one of the best deceptions. You present a choice, but it's often the lesser of two evils. You might offer a really aggressive option A and a slightly more palatable option B.
When option B was your goal the whole time.
The whole time. And it works because the victim feels like they had a choice. They feel in control. But every path leads back to your advantage.
It's entirely manipulative. But there's an interesting counter-tactic in Law 12, which actually relies on honesty.
Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim.
The Trojan horse strategy.
Classic. If you're known to be a bit calculating, one single, sincere, open-hearted gesture, a small gift, an unexpected compliment, it just temporarily lowers the guard of even the most suspicious person.
It's a tiny investment of goodwill that creates an opening.
Precisely. You lower their emotional armor with a little bit of goodness, which allows you to then manipulate them when it really counts.
Okay, let's shift again to the social chessboard. How the laws suggest handling relationships in conflict. Because the advice here is maybe the most famous and cold-blooded part of the whole thing.
It really is. We have to start with Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies.
This one is so radical. It argues that friends get envious more easily and will betray you more quickly.
They feel entitled to your success, and they also lack the critical distance to give you objective advice.
But I have to push back a little. That seems incredibly cynical. I mean, surely reliance on a former enemy is unstable. If they betrayed someone else, why would they be loyal to you?
That's the key distinction the source makes. Friends assume loyalty, but a former enemy has to prove their loyalty every single day. They have more to lose. Their bridges are burned.
So necessity is a stronger bond than affection.
Much stronger, according to this. In fact, the law goes so far as to suggest that if you don't have any enemies, you should find a way to make some.
Wow. Create conflict to solidify your base. That is intense.
It is.
Speaking of protection, when you face enemies, the instinct is to hunker down. But Law 18 says, do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous.
A modern fortress isn't stone walls, right? It's a siloed department, or refusing to network, or just becoming detached.
And that cuts you off from valuable information.
Totally. Rumors, changing tides, new ideas. It makes you an easy, predictable target. The protection, paradoxically, is found out in the open. By circulating among people, finding allies, you're shielded by the crowd.
Okay, but when conflict is unavoidable, the rules become utterly unforgiving. Law 15. Crush your enemy totally.
It says more is lost by stopping halfway than through total annihilation. The rationale is pure self-preservation.
Because if you leave one ember left alight,
The enemy will recover and come back for revenge, usually when you're at your weakest. The goal is to crush them not just in body, but in spirit.
so if you're dealing with widespread dissent in, say, an organization, you can't crush everyone. How do you handle that?
That's where Law 42 comes in. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. Trouble can almost always be traced to a single, strong individual, the agitator.
The troublemaker.
Exactly. You don't waste energy fighting the crowd. You neutralize the source of the problem by isolating or banishing them. Once the shepherd is gone, the sheep lose direction and just scatter.
We've covered a lot. The mastery of perception, the subtle art of control, and this ruthless management of conflict. But these laws aren't just about the climb, are they? They're about surviving at the top.
And that requires profound adaptability. This brings us to the two vital concluding strategies. First is about knowing when to stop. Law 47, do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop.
History is just littered with people who failed this law. The moment of victory is the moment of greatest peril.
Success leads to arrogance, arrogance leads to overreach, and that just creates more enemies than you defeated in the first place.
Napoleon marching into Russia.
The ultimate example. You define your goal, you achieve it, and then you pull back. And that leads to the final and maybe most philosophical law of all. Law 48. Assume formlessness.
This sounds like the ultimate defensive strategy. If you have a clear plan, a fixed structure, you give your enemy a target to aim at.
So the idea is to be fluid, adaptable, constantly disrupting expectations. Be like water. By accepting that nothing is certain and no law is fixed, you make yourself impossible to attack. Your enemy never knows what they're aiming at.
So we're left with this intricate framework built on the premise that power is an amoral, ruthless game of appearances and movement. It's quite pessimistic about human nature, isn't it?
It certainly is.
So here's a final thought for you. If a law like Law 32 suggests playing to people's fantasies, because the truth is often ugly and unpleasant, what does that observation tell you about the fundamental enduring role of illusion in public life, even today? We'd encourage you to look around your own professional world, your team, your company, and consider which of these laws you see in action, and perhaps which ones you might need to defend against.